All right, what's going on, Freedom Revival fam? You guys ready for another exciting episode of Candidate Connect Live? Well, I hope you are, because we're going to be bringing on an awesome candidate, and by we, I mean myself and Britt from Rooted Wings. We'll be pulling her here in a second when she jumps on. But today we're going to be discussing an assembly candidate here in San Diego County running for the, I believe, 76th. If I'm wrong, we're going to find out I'm wrong. It's the 76th Assembly District here in San Diego. So let's see if this works. We'll Britt in here and we'll get going. Oh, technology. Why is this not working? There it is. Yes. We got it.
It is the 76.
Man, oh my God. Yes, it's the 76. Come on. All right. So I'm so excited. For some reason, we had a hiccup on the first attempt. Now we're going
here.
Strong. Energy's up. That's a good
Let's
thing.
go.
How are you, Britt?
I am so excited to be bringing Kristie on. So she is vying for, we don't know how to pronounce Manshine's last name because I have heard it pronounced every way under the sun, but Brian Shane, however you want to pronounce it, the guy. And I'm really excited for her to talk to everyone about why it is so important to get someone who is good and strong and upholds traditional values into this seat that has been so tarnished by this representative. So I'm really excited to bring on Kristie and to chat with her for a little bit and for you all to get to know her.
Yes. All right. So before we bring her on, let's just give a quick synopsis of what is the Freedom Revival and what are we doing?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question because we get asked a lot.
All the time. All right. Go ahead.
So we're a collaborative. It's really important for people to know that this is not Rooted Wings. This is not Sean Frederickson, but rather it is a collaborative of so many incredible leaders across California who got together and said, something's not right, and it's time that we engage and that we redefine the boundary lines of church, culture, politics, because for so long, Christians have been told to back off, get out of government, get out of politics, just go pray in the church. And we bought it, and we're seeing the fruits of that now. And so we, as a collaborative, got together and said, hey, why don't we go in and restore and reclaim the right way, the way of being the conscience of the state that this nation truly was founded and designed and set upon. When you research the 13 colonies and the charters that they had and even their constitutions, the way that they set up governance, it was radically defined by faith. And so we're saying, let's go back and redefine the boundary lines and not just step away, but actually go in and transform culture, the arts, education, government. And so that's what we're doing here. And we are hoping that the side effect will be a very educated public that reclaims that important civic duty of being involved. So that's what Freedom Revival is.
Yeah, that was so well said. And so we had our first Freedom Revival in January, just a few months ago, where we had about 12,000 people showed up to this massive event where there was worship. There were pastors that were speaking about what it means to be courageous. They were telling stories of how they were courageous through the past 2 years. And Candidate Connect kind of birthed out of that experience, realizing that we, the people, need to understand who our elected officials are. We need to understand who the representatives that are directly representing us, as well as the candidates vying for those seats. Therefore, we have really been pushing into this election year with giving as much information to the public that we can find and inform the public with the information so that they can be making educated decisions on their ballot here in the next 40 days, really. Less than 40 days, they're going to have ballots in their hands.
Yeah, so we really want for the public, especially focusing on San Diego and then outpouring into California as a whole, to be educated when you get that ballot so that you're not looking at a bunch of names and it's like a foreign language, but that you actually have context behind those names, that you've been able to hear from these candidates and know their values and then feel very confident in supporting them and then voting for them. So that's what Candidate Connect is it's a way to bring these candidates into your living room, which is an incredible opportunity. There's really nothing like this, and it's time for something like this. So so that's what we're doing with Candidate Connect and with Freedom Revival. And we're excited. We're excited to be bringing in Kristie right now. Hey, Kristie Bruce Lane, how are you?
Good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
You sound great.
Got you.
Right. Woo,
All
for
right.
technology.
Thank you so much, Kristie, for joining us on our second attempt. Wow.
Yeah, thank
You
you.
got it. You're looking good. All right. So, is this your first Instagram Live? Have you done many of these?
No, this is my first Instagram Live. I don't typically do these.
Welcome.
This is pretty exciting. So you have
Awesome.
to teach me how you do this.
You're doing great. We're stoked to have you here. And how about let's just give the audience a general understanding of what the district is that you're running for and who you are and why you're running for that seat.
Okay, so Kristie Bruce Lane running for the newly drawn Assembly District 76. And this district has about 450,000 individuals in it. And it encompasses San Marcos, Escondido, San Pascal, Forest Ranch, Rancho Bernardo, Rancho Santa Fe, Fairbanks Ranch, Rancho Penasquitas. Those are the major areas. Del Sur area, a little bit of Carmel Valley, pretty large district. The district is split out by registration, about a third and a third and a third. And this is a real winnable seat. And we can finally take our seat back from Brian Manshine.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting that you say taking it back from Manshine, because there's something that I learned about him recently, that he was a long time Republican, that he is traditionally a Republican. And in 2018, after he was elected in office, less than 45 days after he was elected, he switched parties. He went from the Republican Party to the Democrat Party, and he's been voting along the Democrat socialist ideology ever since.
Yeah,
so
that is correct.
So it seems that we actually voted in a Republican, a conservative, but what we got is a socialist.
That is exactly right. He switched on us. He's known as a turncoat, also known as the Invisible Manshine since he switched parties. He's been nowhere to be found in the district, is not representing the voices of the people, and it's really shameful. And like I said, this is a real opportunity for the voters to stand up, take our seat back, and let's start enacting common sense policies that are good for the people here.
When you say that he's nowhere to be seen in the district, just for people to understand, what does that mean? What do you mean there's nowhere to be seen in the district, that he's not been seen?
So he's not visible. He's you never see him out talking with his voters, in tune to what's going on in the district, to hear our concerns. And typically that's what you would expect as somebody who's elected. I'm an elected official myself right now. I'm very visible. You're able to communicate back and forth with me via email. I publish a newsletter to 25,000 of my constituents. So I remain in constant contact with them and give them the opportunity to reach me as well. So with Brian Manshine, you really don't see him out here in the district. In fact, a lot of people don't even know what he looks like, which is quite alarming.
That's interesting. And then, hey, Kristie, since you just touched on it, why don't you give us just a real brief background on, you said that you are currently you are a seated elected representative. Can you tell us what seat are you holding, and how did you get into to that position?
Yeah, so currently I'm an elected director for Leavenhaven Municipal Water. So I fight for our water, low, affordable rates here in my district. And, a lot of people ask me, why did you run? Why did you get into politics? I have a corporate background in healthcare and agriculture. So I left the corporate world and jumped into politics. I ran for the seat in 2020, unseated a Democrat back then. And this is during the time of COVID, and that's pretty significant. And, the demographics didn't have to change for me to unseat a Democrat. So, this seat is coming up, and, there's a lot that's happened since I ran last and was successful and implemented a safe, sound strategy that was able for me to take that seat. But it's very interesting what's going on today. Our children are in the crosshairs of our government. Our homeless crisis is growing out of control. Public safety is a real concern for the voters. And, I have the professional, the political, and the community service and advocacy to win this seat. I have served my constituents and served the community of San Diego prior to putting my name on the ballot, working within the issues that are actually the top three, which are homelessness, safety, public safety, and what's happening to our kids in schools.
Yeah, and you've been addressing, like you said, these issues. You've served on boards. I was looking through your bio, Door of Hope, addressing the homelessness. You have been a community care member on the regional task force on the homeless. So you're putting your actions behind what you're saying. You're not just claiming that you're going to do these things, but you've actually been intentionally serving. And it's interesting because Manshine, one of his issues on his site, front center, for as long as he's been serving, is the homelessness issue. But it doesn't look like that's going very well, given the situation that we find ourselves in under his rule in San Diego. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, I'm the only elected official in this race that has experience addressing our homelessness crisis. In fact, I run my own organization, which addresses children who are homeless due to childhood domestic violence. So I do serve on the Door of Hope Salvation Army board, and also a community of care of the Regional Task Force on the Homeless. And I'll tell you, these are working boards. These aren't boards that you sit on and you know, sit there for an hour. I mean, you're actually in the issues, working, you know, with the homeless and helping transition these individuals. And I will say I'm the only person in this race, the only candidate in this race that has that experience, even over the incumbent, Brian Manshine. This situation has spun out of control. The Democratic way is throwing money at the situation and putting these homeless individuals behind hotel rooms, closed doors, and that's not going to work. We have some really sick people out on our streets, and you know, these people don't choose to be homeless. There's just layers and layers of unaddressed trauma, and they find themselves on the street, and they're sick and they don't even know they're sick. You know, if I can just elaborate a little bit on our homelessness, when I launched my campaign, there are a little over 7,000 chronically homeless individuals that were passing through our system, and we're now sitting over 10,000. We're going the wrong direction. We need to strategically place the resources we have on these individuals. There's mental health issues, there's human trafficking, there's
well, let me just jump in.
Violence.
What would you do differently than what's currently happening right now?
Well, I'm doing it right now, actually. What do I do differently? I'm making a difference right now, and that is that I've formed key partnerships within the community to help bring resources to these individuals to help them transition back out into productive citizens. I also, through my organization,
I just want to specify, you're giving resources to them. I know that's really common. Like I used to live in Los Angeles. I used to help people down in Echo Park, go give them sandwiches, give them food. Rainy days, we would always help them out with some like ponchos and that kind of thing. What kind of resources are you giving these homeless to help them get off the streets and empower them?
Yeah, so my resources are very different. So I bring in financial services to the homeless shelters to help them learn about financial literacy. A lot of our homeless individuals, especially women who flee because of domestic violence, flee with nothing. They've never balanced the checkbook. They don't know how to really be accountable for their finances. A lot of the times for homeless individuals, they don't have cars to drive. So they're basically at the beck and call of public transit. And it really hits home to me when children are exposed to that, because we do have children on the street now. They spend 2 to 3 hours on public transit, and when they could be spending 2 to 3 hours at home with their families. But so we bring in a car buying service that will give them affordable and a reliable transportation, because so many times these individuals are desperate and they'll spend $500, whatever's in their pocket, for a set of wheels, and it breaks down. And then they're left with nothing. So we're talking about real resources that allow for them to take steps forward, not take steps back. It's just, it's not food.
If I might just push this a little more, because the homeless is it's one of those hot topics for me lately, learning about how much money has been wasted on the homeless. And by wasted, I mean, there's all this money delegated to homeless resources, and then it's often given to unions and corporations to build these lavish apartments, and then they put a couple homeless in them, or they maybe create this massive building complex, and then they create a cafeteria for them. How do we make sure that those programs don't turn into like buying cars for the homeless and taking more tax dollars and putting it into programs that don't work?
Yeah, you have to be accountable, and you have to track the funds. You just can't hand over a large amount of funds and say, you know, I'm going to trust you to do with it. So many times salaries are paid or it's misused. We really need to have accountability in those funds that are being brought down to the cities.
Cool.
I think that's helpful. It gives us like a pretty good benchmark of how you plan to take on the homelessness issue. And what I'm hearing is that it's not just throwing money at a problem and creating like what Brian has been doing is we'll create affordable housing, we'll expand services, which tends to be just like that cyclical merry-go-round, but instead you're saying, let's go in and address what the core issues are, and then focus on those issues so that we can empower people to get off of the streets instead of just kind of band-aiding the problem.
Yeah, and not only, where I take a stand, it's not only helping the people that are on the streets and transitioning them, but also prevention. So my organization, we focus on prevention, which I don't see any legislation coming out as far as prevention. And when I talk about that, so let's look at the time frame of COVID when domestic violence, sparked in the double digits across our nation, and we have children that were exposed. So statistically, a child who's been exposed to domestic violence is 6 times more likely to commit suicide, 50 times more likely to be addicted to drugs and alcohol, and 74 times more likely to, commit a crime. So we already have a layer of trauma that we need to address at a young age and prevent that child from growing up, making the wrong decisions and ending up on our street. A child who's been exposed to homelessness is more likely to repeat it as well. So we really have to look at it almost individual by individual. What trauma have they faced? Are they, they have mental health issues? Are they victims of domestic violence? I mean, what's really going on with those individuals, and strategically place those resources where it makes sense, because they're not all cookie cutter out there. They're people. They're all real people.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because I want to go quickly through some other issues that I think are really important and are on the cutting block. We just had a massive vote in California earlier yesterday, and it was finalized last night. AB 2223, it's known as the infanticide bill, which is, it's very murky in its language. I think it's completely intentional, and that's why they're making it murky, even though they keep being called out on the fact that what is perinatal? Define perinatal death, because that opens up the door for all kind of evils, and they're just continuing to keep it very ambiguous. So there was this huge vote in the Assembly Health Committee yesterday to push it forward to the Appropriations Committee or to kill the bill in its tracks. Manshine is on that committee, so he voted, and he has received a 100% rating from Planned Parenthood affiliates of California and NARAL's Pro-Choice America for his records of protecting access to reproductive health care. He opposes any attempt to overturn Roe v. Wade, and he stood up to Trump administration when they started coming after Planned Parenthood. So given all that, of course he voted yes on AB 2223 yesterday. This is going to be an incredibly important issue going forward, as we know that the tide is shifting as science has become much more clear on when life begins and the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We want to know where you stand on protecting the unborn.
Yeah, I absolutely will protect the unborn. I believe that, at conception is where life begins. And it's just, again, they're whittling away little by little with these bills, like you say, that are murky, that are hard to read. A lot of voters, when they, a lot of voters don't even pull it down, to read it. But when they do, it is very confusing on what it says, what its intentions are. So, yeah, I am not surprised by Brian Manshine's vote. And I think it's shameful. I think we need to protect life. I have a 7-year-old child myself. I love him dearly, as I do all children, and I have a record of protecting children.
Well, so I think a couple, if you don't mind me transitioning to another hot topic, is the election. There's a lot of people that are concerned about the 2022 election coming up and it being a safe space for a true republic to be preserved, where if they cast their ballot, it's not going to be turned into another vote. Is there do you have a perspective on what happened in 2020? Do you believe that there's any cheating that took place? And do you think that there is anything that we can do or any necessary change for 2022?
Yeah, I think in 2022, we really need to track our ballots and make sure that they're counted for. And you will, by law, you can receive another ballot if you track your ballot and it ends up missing. But a lot of voters don't do that, and they need to track their ballot, and that's one change that we can make. As far as election integrity, we have to remain focused on that. I mean, we're under assault. Our democracy is under assault. Our republic is under assault, and we need to make sure we do our due diligence and the things that we can do, and our state's got to fight that.
Yeah, that's so good. So the election is 40 days away. Well, the primary, what is the significance of someone voting in the primary election in June?
Well, for me, I'm forced to go into a primary only because I had another Republican jump in my race late in the process. So we actually have two Republicans and then Brian Manshine, the one that jumped in the race, ran in 2020 and lost by double digits, and really has zero experience working in the issues. I think when you go to vote for an elected official, you really need to know who you're voting for, research the candidate. And it's real important that you, vote somebody in that has experience working in the issues, so that actually when you get to Sacramento, you can address, the legislation and enact the proper legislation to fix what's going on. So experience does matter. And I'll tell you, I'm the only elected official in this race that has experience in the top three issues in San Diego, and that is homelessness as our number one public.
Do we lose audio?
I think she realized it. Say those three issues again. We lost your audio.
It's homelessness, what's happening to our kids in school, and public safety are the top three issues here in San Diego.
Since we are only a couple minutes out from having to say bye to you, I do want to address the schools, because I know that is something very important in San Diego and to San Diego voters. And I know that you have very strong views on that and wanting to protect our kids in schools. So can you elaborate on your position in regards to what we're seeing in the school systems here in San Diego and across California?
Absolutely. So I sit on the San Diego Council on Literacy Board, another working board. And what we're seeing now is 46% of our third graders in the San Diego Unified School District, the second largest school district in the state of California, do not meet reading and writing requirements. And then as far as the whole state, 50% of our fourth graders and eighth graders do not meet reading and writing requirements. Yet we have Brian Manshine voting a nod yes on AB 101, which is the ethnic studies course that is required to graduate from high school. I'll tell you, we can't even meet the basic needs of our kids. And what we need is reading, writing, math, science that will give them the opportunities they need. Those are the basics that they're going to need when they get a job coming out of high school. Not all kids are going to go to college, but we're not even addressing the basic needs of our kids. And to add, I also take it a step further, and I vow and I promise that I will protect kids behind the gates of schools. I have experience in this. Right now, what we're seeing is a huge influx of anti-Semitism. We're seeing physical and mental harm to our students behind those gates. And schools need to be held accountable. They are there to protect our kids when moms like us drop our kids off behind those gates. So those are some real important issues with our children. Our children are literally caught in the crosshairs of our government. The comprehensive sex education that's being taught, the CRT, none of that should be in our schools. We really need to give them the basics to survive and have opportunity.
On the topic of schools, real quick, there have been a lot of mandates that we've encountered here in San Diego. What's your position on the health mandates that are being forced on children?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. We need to give parental rights. We need to fight for the parents' voice in what's happening to their children. Whether it's with the COVID shot or it's masking. I mean, the masking has done a lot of damage and has set our children back at least a couple years as far as when the children are in developmental stages and learning speech and words. That's our job. That's our job as parents, and we need to take that back. The government should not be dictating what happens to our children.
Right.
I want you, as we're heading to the close right now, people who are watching this, who are going to watch it and listen to it, this will be posted, the recording, once we're done. And so lots of people are going to listen and see this. Some, are green when it comes to politics and government, and they're probably wondering, what the heck is an assembly member? How is that any different than Congress or Senate? What Senate? You know, there's a lot of questions. And so if you can just kind of clarify the role that you are going for and how that role functions in relation to California government, and just give clarity on your view of the role of an assemblywoman.
Yeah, so when you're voted into assembly at a state level, you are responsible for legislation, similarly to what you're seeing with Brian Manchin. In fact, exactly. So we're responsible for, it's basic, enacting legislation that affects the people. This seat is so vital and so important to what's going on even on the local level. I need to take this seat back. I'm polling as the leader in this race. We have a real chance now to bring back common sense policies, take back our seat in Assembly District 76. And this is a winnable seat. And what we need to do is target those seats that are winnable up and down the state of California and go after them with candidates that have experience. And that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. So for those that are just getting into government to try to comprehend our rights as citizens, it sounds like what you're saying is the Assembly is a branch of the legislature who writes the laws in the state of California. Similarly to the U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate, the Assembly partners with is a bicameral with the California Senate, and the two of them are passing laws in the state. Therefore, we need more conservatives, more righteous people that are in these seats to preserve the republic from falling into socialist Marxist ideologies.
That's exactly right.
And I think it's important for people who are thinking like, oh, well, she's not in my district. Well, you just saw what happened with 2223, because it actually does have a much larger handprint than it being just your localized community. So if you like what Kristie is about, why don't you share some ways that people can follow you and support you, and then get your name in front of people who actually will have the opportunity to put you in the seat?
Yeah, my platform, or see what I'm about, read more about what I'm about, and my endorsements on KristieBruceLane.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook as well. You know, you can call me. I'm available. I will call you back. You can email me as well. We have an event tomorrow night right here in Forest Ranch for those who just want to show up, shake my hand, say hi. I would love to hear what's on the top of your mind, what concerns you the most. But we need the votes. We need to take this seat back, and I'll add on to what you said, Britt. You know, this matters, not only to the local people, but to our state, because, you know, that Biden is saying that California is going to become the blueprint for the rest of the United States. We need to get it right here.
Yes.
We need to get it right here in California. And that's how important this is. Every vote counts, no matter where you live in the state of California. My vote in Sacramento will affect you, like you said, as we're seeing now with Manchin's votes.
So good.
Beautiful. All right. So if you feel like we got enough there, then I think that it is time to work our way out. One of the questions that I think is important is to understand why people should vote for you. So Kristie, after a half an hour of hearing your heart, why would people want to vote for you?
Why would people want to vote for me? Because I'm standing for the values that I'm hearing that people want, actually. We are tired of the destructive, bad policies out of Sacramento that are hurting our families, putting our children in the crosshairs, increasing our taxes, closing our businesses, and driving us to the state line. I will stand firm. You know, I'm already an elected official. I know how to win a race. I'm a proven leader, and I'm a community advocate. I've been working in the issues for many years. I'm excited about getting to Sacramento, taking that seat, and really standing up for the people and giving the people the voice they deserve, and giving a voice to our children that they deserve.
So good, Kristie. And you know, it's always hard with these because there's so much I want to crunch into 30 minutes, but we didn't even get to touch on your background in agriculture, in healthcare, and what you saw there that really formed your opinions going into the pandemic and through the pandemic. We didn't get to talk about how you stand for the Second Amendment and the First Amendment. Those are all such important issues. So I would really encourage people to go check you out at it's KristieBruceLane.org or .com?
.com. And I would encourage people to come on out tomorrow night, and you can ask me open-ended questions. I'll be there. Come on out, say hi, grab a yard sign, Yard signs too, I forgot to mention, are very valuable, and placing a yard sign in your yard will help out in this race. And then vote for Kristie Bruce Lane when the ballots drop, and early ballots drop May 10th.
So good.
Beautiful.
Well, Kristie, we just thank you so much for joining us and sharing your heart, sharing your vision and your values. I hope that this made people really excited about you and want to get to know you more, to show up to that meet and greet tomorrow,
Totally.
to go check out your website and learn more about your values. But do you have anything else that you want to leave people with before we say goodbye?
No, I just want to thank everybody who supported my race, who continues to support my race today. I can't express enough how important this seat is. This is a winnable seat. Help me take this seat back. Help me go to Sacramento so I can stand up for us.
Beautiful. I love it. All right, Kristie, thank you so much for having taking the time to hang out with us. One more message that I want the viewer to hear is Kristie has taken the initiative to get engaged in the system. How are you getting engaged in the system? We can no longer wait for a hero. It's time to become heroes and take back authority in our own lives. So the June primaries are going to need poll workers. They will need people to watch over the ballots. We will need people to ensure that we have a safe and fair election. Therefore, I'm asking you guys to go ahead and take the time to commit to working the polls, as well as you can do, what do we have? The technical
inspector, precinct inspector, poll worker. And then when you send in that, there's three. And then when you send in that application, they'll get back to you to let you know that you are hired, because it's now a temporary hire position through the county. And once you have that established, you can ask to actually be on the floor to watch as the ballots are brought in and counted. So there are really more than just those initial three that you'll see, but it's sdvote.com is where you want to go if you're in San Diego. If you're in California proper, you can go to California, I believe it's SOS, Secretary of the State, and you can go there and apply to be a poll worker throughout California.
Absolutely. And then one last thing, there's been a lot of curiosity as to your inoculation status, if you're capable of working these polls, and you absolutely can. Do not let this misinformation stop you from getting involved in the system. You may not be running for a public seat, but you can ensure that the election is secured by working at the polls. You do not have to have any unwanted health mandates or stuff poked in you to work the polls.
There's no medical mandate to work the polls, is what he's trying to say. That was so dang wordy. Come on.
I was thinking through, how do I not get censored?
I'm like, you never self-censor. What are you doing?
I'm so tired of it. I feel like I'm playing a jungle gym in my head.
Oh, man.
I love you guys. Thank you, Kristie,
right,
so much.
Thank you. Mwah.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
you.
God bless you guys. Peace.
God bless you.
Go follow
Thank
Kristie.
you.
Bye, everybody.